Thanks for joining us here for It Matters today. It's time for our local business review. And I have my typical, regular, wonderful partners. Barry Kirchhoff is here from the SBDC. We have Wendy Hendricks from Agency North Real Estate, my partners in crime when it comes to our local business review, who bring me wonderful stories of great people in our community, local business leaders. And today, Barry, you brought in a friend of yours. I cannot wait to hear her story. This is Katerina Patit. Did I say it correct?
Yes, you did.
All right. Thank you for coming in today. You are the dean. You're the dean over at the Herberger School of Business.
That's right.
This is exciting to have you on the show. This is a big job for you, right? I mean, you have a big goal here. You play a pivotal role in setting strategic direction and alignment with the university's its time vision, your goals to strengthen the school's distinctive programs and help with new initiatives. So it's exciting to have you on the show. But beyond that, we like to talk about lifting people up here on the show. And sometimes we think we have it so hard, right? And Barry, you were telling me how she has such a wonderful story. Did you reach out to her recently to come on to the show?
Well, yes, I did. Actually, I don't know, friend. I mean, I've only known Katerina for a couple of months. She's the dean. She's my boss.
She's your boss.
Yes, amazing. And yes, she told a story when she was introducing herself to the faculty. And I was just taken back and I went, oh my gosh, what a wonderful story. And, you know, it matters. And with the connection being business and the business dean, I asked Katerina if she'd be on the radio program and told a little about it. And she agreed. And I was so excited because I think the listeners will very much enjoy hearing her story and how she ended up to be the dean of the Herberger Business School here at St. Cloud State University.
Well, yeah, you've escaped communism. Your family escaped communism. Tell us where you're from and how all this started.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And Barry, I think friend is probably appropriate as well. I've really enjoyed our conversations, and I'm so glad you invited me to tell the story.
Yeah.
So it is somewhat of a lengthy story, and I started telling it when someone asked me, so how did you get here? Because clearly I'm not from here. Mm-hmm. I've been in Minnesota for about 16 years now, and I had a sort of a circuitous way of getting here, but it really started 1981, and I was 6, and my parents at that time were only 26, and we lived in the Czech Republic, or it was Czechoslovakia at the time, and it was still under communist rule. And my parents, they were not part of the Communist Party, so they really looked at sort of my future and what the future would hold for them as not being part of it, and they decided they were going to try and get out and make a better future for our family. So what happened at that time, typically the way that people tried to escape was using vacation to Yugoslavia. That was sort of a very popular thing at the time, and people would buy packages and then they would not come back. They would try to go through Austria and then apply for asylum there. So that's what my dad did. He camped out in front of the travel agency to snatch one of the last packages to get out, because at that time it was getting very popular and the authorities were catching on that that's what people were doing.
I see.
So they started to shut down the program, and so we went on vacation. And I was 6 years old. I had no idea what was going on. So we packed my parents and my aunt and uncle in a small, tiny communist-era car and a few suitcases. And we went to Yugoslavia, and we had a wonderful time, at least from a 6-year-old's perspective.
Sure.
And I didn't quite understand why they wouldn't want to buy me ice cream and a watermelon. And then later I realized that it's because they were trying to save every money they could to be able to then start a new life. And so we, in some extent, got very lucky, because at that time, the border crossings also were realizing that people were trying to not return. And so they were turning people back from the Czech Republic. And so I think the way my parents tell it, we had already tried almost all crossings to Austria, and we were returned in all of them. And the last one, it was a very, very hot day and a very long line. People were returning, and the car in front of us was pulled to the side because I think they were in a similar situation as we were, and they went with the main officer. And, well, the officer wasn't coming back, and the apprentice looked at our paperwork, and he looked at his supervisor, and the line was so long, and he just wasn't sure when the guy was coming back. So he looked at us and said, well, just go. And that was
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Yeah. And so we drove, and a few miles past the border crossing, my parents jumped out of the car and they were all hugging. And I didn't understand why. It was quite weird. I thought that didn't seem so spectacular to cross a border. But anyhow, and so this is how we ended up in Austria at first. And so I'm from German heritage originally. So my grandmother was German. She was during the war, during World War II, she ended up in the Czech Republic, but we had German heritage, so we could apply for repatriation. But yeah, that's how we ended up, and it was grit and sheer luck in the end.
Oh, goodness. So from that point on, did you have anybody trying to come after you, or were you okay once you made it there? It was moving forward?
Yeah, so we could start a new life, and the German government had a lot of services exactly during that time. There were a lot of people fleeing, and so that was well established. But in the Czech Republic, the authorities came after my grandparents because they didn't know that we had left. And my parents were tried in absentia and sentenced to prison for abducting me from the communist regime. So I was kind of state property, and they couldn't return until I'm trying to remember when the revolution was, but not until the communist regime was replaced could they return back and see their parents and visit again.
So hard on them to leave their family, but want a better life for you.
That's
themselves.
right. So I owe them. They never remind me I'm the only child, but I feel like I always have to deliver,
Oh, goodness.
Well, you very much
Well,
have.
I think you're delivering.
And here you are in St. Cloud. We're so
That's
lucky,
right.
lucky
Yes.
to have you here.
Wow, what a story. That is an incredible. So your whole life you've strived to be the best you can be while you've been here. You realized sort of over time what this meant, what your family did for you.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of been guiding me of how I try to give back and help uplift others and help build community, because that's in the end what has gotten us through, what has given me a chance to succeed, to flourish, to be the best I can be. And so it's a strong driver for me to get up in the morning.
What did your family decide to do once they were here? Where did they end up?
Well, they're here now. They live a mile north of me. I brought them over from Germany 6 years ago because, if they want to see the grandkids, I'm busy. So they have to come here.
That is wonderful.
Okay, so they are here? Do they live here?
Yeah, they live here, and they've been very happy being here. We still have family in the Czech Republic and in Germany as well. But yeah, so we travel, we come back often, but they've built their life here now, and they really, really love Minnesota. It's a dream come true for my dad. He loves fishing.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's good. Then he's right in the right spot.
10,000 lakes.
Yes,
got you covered
they weren't
there.
kidding.
10,000 lakes. So, okay, so now here you are. You're in St. Cloud. You're the dean of the school. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between here for you to become the dean of the Herberger School of Business.
Yeah, well, when in Germany I went to school, I had to actually learn German. I didn't speak a word of German, and so they stuck me in first grade, which was kind of a traumatic experience, not speaking any German. But it worked out, obviously.
Yeah.
I went to business school, and then after I finished my equivalent of an MBA, I came to the U.S. because my focus was international business. So I worked in Arizona for a while. I worked in the real estate industry. Then I moved to New York City. I worked there for a while, and then I went to graduate school. So over Rutgers in New Jersey to Wharton and Philadelphia, and then after I graduated with my PhD, I came to Minnesota and I started at St. Thomas. And
Goodness.
that was the journey. So as when someone says, "Do you want the short or the long story?" I said, "Well, how long?"
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you could go. I mean, I'm just mesmerized. After the show, I want to go out to eat. I want to sit down and just listen to the stories, because there's got to be so many that we have never experienced. I mean, even having to learn another language. I went to college to try to learn French. I had 2 semesters. They asked me to come back, and I said, "Professor, I do not know what I'm saying." And I didn't dare go back, because I was like, he's like, "You're just this close to understanding all of it." But I mean, that's difficult. And how many languages have you learned now?
Well, I speak still Czech and German with my parents at home, so we do that. My kids go to German immersion school in St. Paul. English. It was always my worst subject. I hate to always say that. I think there's some cosmic justice in this. And I studied Spanish as well. So I went to Guatemala to study Spanish for a while. And I dabbled in Japanese, but that was not that successful.
Difficult. Well,
Yes.
it's a lot of languages.
I heard a rumor at a national conference from my colleague at St. Thomas, and they said, yeah, you folks up in St. Cloud did good. You received a big award right before you left St. Thomas. And I know that you'd be too humble to mention it, but tell me about that.
Which award? The service award?
Yes.
Which award, Barry?
Yeah, I
Which
know.
one?
Which one, Barry? There are so many. No, I did. It was kind of a sad day because it was the day I decided that I was going to step down, and I decided to take the position. And I went in actually to tell my boss. And on that day, they had kind of lured me into the office, and they gave me this service award for exceptional service to the college and the university. So it was a very sad sort of mixed emotion day because I felt it was acknowledging a lot of the things that I tried to build there in the community and seeing kind of what was accomplished over the years, and then having to say goodbye.
Oh, goodness. I had a friend that went to St. Thomas. I think she still kind of works. I don't know. She does computer stuff. Amy Garbez is her name. Amy Wilder now. But she lives out in Oregon, but I think she still works for the college somehow. So, but that's so interesting. And so what was the other award then? There's more than one. Or maybe there's more than two.
No. Well, there was. I had briefly thought about, just when I arrived, our information systems department and the Master of Information Assurance had received an award as well to be reaccredited as a National Center for Academic Excellence from the National Security Agency. So that was a big award that I had absolutely nothing to do with except go on the stage and accept it, and that was fantastic. And it happened right as it started. So that was exciting.
What piqued my interest when I saw that you were going to be joining Herberger Business School because of my involvement with the Better Business Bureau. In fact, I just got off a call this morning. We had an ethical situation, which Better Business Bureau is all about. Tell us a little bit about your study in ethics and how I think it's very important with the world we live in right now is to really reinforce good business ethics. Can you weigh in on that?
Well, it was kind of an organic transition. I started out in international business, but I had been drawn to some of the sort of ethical challenges of business and organizing for a while. And so I was always told if I just leave out the ethics, it would be a very good research study, and I wasn't quite ready to do that. So I studied and focused on it. And it is really, from what I heard always from students, that is kind of the biggest challenge is that people are trying to run their business, run it ethically, and yet there is lots of pressures. There's pressures to meet performance goals, there's pressures from shareholders, and so trying to figure out what we can give our students to help them navigate that and be also clear on their own values. I think sometimes it's just that we don't even have time to stop and think about what motivates us, what are our real ethical values that we want to bring to the table, and having some tools to help us communicate that and kind of stand firm when we need to.
You were telling me out in the lobby about your father. He had a principled and ethical decision to make.
That's right.
And that was a great piece of information you gave me. I think that's very worth sharing.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. Sort of when I said, my father looked at not being part of the Communist Party and not having a future. It was a little bit more complicated than that because his parents weren't in the Communist Party either. And so as a student, he was quite brilliant, very good with his hands, and he wanted to be a surgeon. But he was not allowed to go to medical school because the authorities would not allow that for someone who was not in the party. And he, he became an engineer. He was successful for himself in IT, but he was not willing to just sort of play along, to pretend. And I think it became clear to him that if he really wanted to be true to his principles, he had to take this more drastic step and be courageous and see if he could make it. And he did. And he always has kind of held strong to his principles throughout his life. And I've always admired that.
Wow. It's an incredible story because I think so many people think, well, I just have to go along with it. And this is a story of no, you don't have to go along with it. And just think how different our world would be if we did not just go along with it, right? If we would stand up for what we believe in. But you're right. We do have to really take an ethical look inside before we go there, right? And figure out, do we believe in?
Yeah.
And I think the past few years, that's kind of how the show evolved during COVID, is, we started talking to businesses about how are they evolving their business? How are they keeping their business alive? How are they changing their business? And it was a time for people to really look inward. And I'm so excited to see all the entrepreneurs that are flourishing. New entrepreneurs are starting because maybe they lost their jobs or they're,
Right.
and it's like, what do you have to lose? And it's like, go after your dreams. So, and I'm just so excited to have you here in our community. You are just I'm just so thankful that you found your way to St. Cloud.
Well, I'm so honored that people trusted me enough with this pretty big project. So.
And a little bit about Barry. So Barry is wonderful. I've been working with him for many years. He always calls me the street disciple for the Small Business Development Center because I send so many clients to him. But he is incredible. So the two of you together, wow, we have a power team here.
Power. Wonder Twin powers activate. Like, remember the Wonder Twins?
Listeners that know me are going to be
Blast off.
nauseated. They say Barry doesn't need to have that ego massage like that.
Oh, who doesn't, Barry?
Who doesn't? Katerina, thank you so much for being on the show. And before
Thank you for
go,
having me.
I think it'd be nice if people said, hey, you know what? I want to go into business. I think I would love to be under someone who's the dean of the Herberger Business School. If people are interested in business and want to go to school there, do they go through SCSU to become part of the program?
They can reach out to anyone. They can reach out to me, and I'll connect them and explore with them what the future holds for them.
Well, I appreciate you all for being here. This is really special having you on the show. Thank you so much for being a part of our community.
Thank you
Sharing
so
your
much
story.
for having me.